All right, we're recording. So I guess 3, 2, 1. Welcome to episode 4 of the What Was the Clutch Kick podcast. And now it's the Pit Box podcast. Now, I know we've been missing in action for basically all of 2019, but it is what it is, you know. Things happen.
Life gets in the way.
Yep, life absolutely does get in the way. And yeah, so it's just me and Gartrell today. Sebastian couldn't make it for this one, but I guess we'll start off by explaining why we have a new name. So, when I started the podcast last year, I didn't do the greatest search of making sure nobody else had the same name as us.
I don't think anyone did, but
Yeah, and so like once Clutch Kick came in, I was like, oh man, like that's the one right there. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. And then I was like, okay, we're good. And then suddenly, like 2 of my friends in the same week sent me like screenshots.
from someone else on YouTube.
Yeah, and it was like, oh look, they're also the Clutch Kick podcast, but it's just Clutch Kick podcast for them. And I was like, we got some competition. So
Right.
let me go and investigate and see what's going on here. But once I saw they had like 100 episodes, I was like, oh, we can't even do anything with that.
Yeah, they were pretty well established. They didn't have a ton of subscribers or listeners. Like I could, not. This is not to cast aspersions or anything like that. It's just the fact that they were established enough to the point where they were trying to build a name for themselves under that particular domain, and we just feel like it wouldn't be right to either have anything similar or representing their what they're trying to build as a brand. So we figured it'd be a time to rebrand, and that's when Steve came up with
The Pit Box. Yep. So the idea behind the name also kind of has to do with some of the behind the scenes stuff that's happening. Of course, we're looking to incorporate more racing content into the podcast in the future. And for my non-astute car peoples that that like to listen to the podcast, the Pit Box is essentially like, within the pits, you have the pit stall, and then, you can also call it the box. And then, of course, you have the teams that are right there up on their bench-like things. And, yeah, that's where they run most of the show at the track. And I figured it was perfect in the sense that we're moving in a motorsports direction with some of the things that we're doing, and nobody should have this name. If they do, we're not changing it again. We're just going to outdo them this time.
That's what has to be done, So gotta do what we gotta do. So, but I think what we need to go into now is more so what you've been coming out with in terms of why we've got this name called the Pit Box. I think you got something you want to tell the listeners.
Of course. So some of you know, most of you probably don't know, but my dream, like my whole life, has always been to be a professional race car driver. And early in the year, I went to Sebring to watch 2 endurance races. It was the Sebring Super Weekend, which is the World Endurance Championship, and the IMSA 12 Hours of Sebring. Now, I've always been a fan of endurance racing my whole life, but it's funny how seeing something in person definitely puts the battery in your back. And while I was there, I was like, I must have been delusional for doing all this other stuff. This is right where I'm supposed to be. Why was I doing anything else the rest of my life? Like, why was I really putting in all this extra effort when I knew this is what I wanted to do? And I went home. I was like, it's time to get to it.
It's kind of like you can actually put this into perspective for, just everyday normal people. It's like buying a new car, but you test drove it first and you fell in love on the test drive. So I think that kind of like resonates with Steve, where, he hasn't been to many high profile races like Sebring, and then actually being at one, seeing, the whole race life and what it's actually about, not just like, watching it on TV or see it in a video, it really puts you into perspective the same way you'd hop behind, a brand new Supra and you drive it and you fall in love, and then that's all you want for the next, 10 years of your life is to get that Supra or whatever car it might be. So I think that's where, it really came real. Like he needs to, follow his dream and go after what he wants.
Yeah, it's just completely different seeing it in person. You don't get the smells, the atmosphere, the sound on TV. Of course, we're fortunate it's 2019 and we have some high quality televisions and surround sounds that a lot of people have in their houses.
Even VR, but it's still not the same.
It just don't compare. And so the first step, of course, you got to build the foundation. The foundation is go-karts. So next year, 2020 in March, I'll have a go-kart team up and running so I can begin my career. And yeah, that is part of the motivation behind changing it to Pitbox, because now that's a whole different type of content that we will be able to bring to you guys, because it's not necessarily the most common thing, especially being black, to pursue the path that I am. And I just want to take everybody along for the ride.
Yeah, I think we should shout out to Lewis Hamilton at this point.
6 championships.
6-time world championship, doing things that's never been done before. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to Steve starting up his go-kart team, and I'm very much looking forward to being on it, being in that pit box, being part of his pit crew, helping him achieve his goal, get, wins under his belt at the races, and as well as, connect myself with, the racing world, because I too do love circuit racing and drag racing and all kinds of racing, and that would be me sort of also living out my dream of, being involved in this, crazy world of race cars. And so I'm excited. I don't know about you guys. I definitely am looking forward to what's coming in the future. Definitely looking forward to, seeing him win some good races.
We winning championships.
Yep. You got to have that mentality. He's already, got the go-kart kind of picked out, all and everything. I think we just need to work out some logistics, and we'll have this team up and running.
Oh, yeah. And if anybody listening wants to sponsor, holla at me. You know where to find me. All my social media stuff will be in the comments below. Yep. So, so that covers the whole rebrand portion, because, like I said, it's going to be kind of funny seeing, like, when you rewatch the first 3 episodes and it's a different name, and you come back to this and it's like, oh, we got a new name. Okay. New year, new us.
Yep. That's definitely what's happening.
Yep. And you guys been long enough to have missed out on Gartrell's newest purchase, or, 2 purchases.
Yeah. So, if we're talking about, things we're planning on doing in the near future, especially with the pit box, actually, this kind of is going back to the pit box. Recently, I made 2 acquisitions of vehicles, one more recent than the other. I've had the M4 for a little bit now, a few months now, and there it is. I've got a BMW M4 now, guys. Yep, 2016, 6 manual transmission, keeping the manuals alive. Even though DCT is it's a little bit better nowadays, and definitely has launch control, which is something I covet, But it's definitely been a pleasure, to drive such an amazing piece of machinery and, really feel all that the car has to offer in terms of, handling and power and, styling and aerodynamics. It's just been a very great experience, and I'm super, super glad that I picked it up. But that's not the car that's really, going to be, a race car per se. The most recent acquisition, I guess we're going to reveal to you today. Hopefully this doesn't air before my YouTube video.
Probably won't.
Yeah, but and if it does, then oh well. You got to listen here first to find out what's happening in that video.
Breaking news.
Exactly. This is breaking news right here. You got your first scoop on, the lowdown on what I got. So I actually picked up a 1996 one-owner EK hatch. And I know what you're thinking. It's just like a Honda? Really? A race car Honda? You want to be one of those Honda boys? But
Well, our non-car followers would be like, EK? Hmm? It's a Civic.
it's a Civic, yeah.
Yeah, just like the 96 to 2000 Civic hatchback.
Correct, right? We'll probably post a picture up or something soon. But overall, the car is, for the year, very well maintained, I would say. It has all the original interior panels, exterior panels, no subframe rust. That's like
Shocking.
shocking for these cars. And it's from Pennsylvania, so it's not even like they don't get snow or anything. But overall, going back to, the main point, it's a great base for what could potentially be a very exhilarating and, very well-rounded sports car. And I definitely got a lot in store for it. Definitely have like my build list pretty much, saved in my computer, ready to purchase in the wish list. But it's gonna be definitely, a circuit monster. It's gonna be nothing too crazy in terms of horsepower. It's definitely gonna have tons of grip. Definitely got the great suspension and handling, and that's what the key goal is, because I want it to be a fast circuit car. So that's going to be my connection with the racetrack in 2020. Hopefully we can get this finished and ready for the track by, summer of 2020. We'll be working towards that. But thanks for listening to, the two cars I picked up. Honestly, they've been great. I'm really happy with the purchases I've made, and I can't wait to see where it's going to take us,
Yeah, I definitely agree. One thing I definitely thought about when you mentioned that your car is a stick is the whole manual versus automatic or dual clutch debate, which I find to be interesting because once you hit the $55,000 mark, the whole it being a stick thing becomes a bit less relevant.
Yep. 100%.
Because like in the cheaper cars, like something like my car, to me is like, why would you get an automatic? It's not really all that great, and it doesn't really suit the car.
Right.
And I know cars like Miatas don't even have an automatic option, but it's like it just, to me, doesn't really make sense unless like you literally just got the car and you're not a car person, you just like the way it looks, which is fine too.
Yeah.
I can understand that. But it's always funny, like all the talk about save the manuals on the internet, but then people still buy more automatics. And it's like the people who allegedly care clearly aren't the ones buying the cars.
Yeah, that's very true. And my whole thing about the whole DCT or, manual transmission debate versus manual is pretty much you have to do, at the end of the day, what's going to benefit your driving experience and what you want the car for.
Mm-hmm.
So if, your thing is top speed, and, flawless shifting and, backfires and things like that from downshifting, when the RPMs are at its highest, then, I mean, that's what you go for, or if, the car doesn't even get offered in a DCT, then I understand, like, that's where it comes from. But then there are people who, truly want to connect with their cars and, just prefer the old-fashioned way of doing things. It's not so much of like, one person, this is better than the other. It's more so personal preference at the end of the day. And I feel as though, regardless of cost of car, or cost of the vehicle, it just comes down to what you want out of your driving experience. So for me, that's being more closely connected with my car, having, that physical aspect of my body connecting with the car, then that's all I really want when I drive my cars, is to be, fully involved, fully in control, not letting the computer make my decisions. And, also I make my own mistakes too with the car. So, and that's a better learning experience. I think it can also make you a better driver, having that physical aspect to it, because there's a little bit more involved. So now if you can master, a 6-speed with, a $90,000 car, the DCT is going to be nothing for you. And I think that it's just night and day. And just to shout out, I believe it is, who was it? Is it B is for build? I don't want to incorrectly state. There's somebody making a manual Huracan, and I believe it is B is for build right now. He's making a V8 twin turbo 6-speed transmission or 7-speed transmission out of the Audi R8. If it's 7-speed, I believe.
If it's stick, it's 6.
So then 6. Okay, I apologize. So it's the 6-speed Huracan. So where do you hear that? You know, like,
that's ridiculous.
it is ridiculous, but personal preference at the end of the day, you know.
But also that's the exclusivity thing to me.
Yeah.
Because you literally would be the only person on the planet until the second person wants it to have a manual Huracan.
Yeah, a gated Huracan. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I guess it also could be a distinguishing factor, even if you're not, a high-class car. You know, for example, like, how many 6MTs do you see for M3 or M4? They're a lot more rare than the DCT. So at the end of the day, and it could also be even used as a factor to make your car value higher. I'm pretty sure the M2 right now, 6MT, is going higher than the DCT version.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So, I mean, if you want to factor those in, be my guest. But for me, at the end of the day, it's going to be all about how you want to control your car and what your preference is for driving.
You know, it's an interesting fact. So, for my non-car people, per se, I'm trying to think of a way to explain this to you that you care. You probably won't care anyways. But, so, Porsche has the 911. So, you guys are probably familiar in some shape or form with the 911, and well, probably put one up on the screen. So there's multiple models to the 911, right? I'm not gonna go through all the models, even though I could. There's no need to. There's only one that matters for this conversation, and it's the GT3 model.
I knew that was coming.
So the GT3 is 500 horsepower, more aerodynamics, less weight, just a whole lot more performance, and surprisingly is the only current model 911, excluding the 2020s, like, focused on like 2018 or more so, 2017 to 2019, the only model in the range that isn't turbocharged. And so the previous version of this car was automatic only, and people were all up in arms over it, like, oh man, this is it.
Yeah.
It's over. The show's over. What are we going to do? People were just freaking out, right? Probably even people that can't afford a car, just freaking out. Whatever, that's the internet. So then what Porsche did prior to the newest GT3 coming out was they had a special edition 911 called the 911R that was essentially, a GT3 RS that was a stick, and it also had some other features too that made it the lightest 911 in the range, and it had a modern but old school vibe to the interior. Rather than having Alcantara or suede for everybody else, it was leather, and like this nice brown leather on some with the houndstooth material in the seat. Some of them had black leather. And so there was only 991 of those. Everybody lost their marbles over it. If MSRP was like 185, people were selling them for like allegedly close to $1 million. And even now, like, they sell for somewhere in the 300,000 range, right? Which is still well above what people were paying for the cars. But that's just supply and demand. There's only 991 of them on the planet. And so when Porsche saw how retarded people were acting over this car, they were like, "Oh well, we'll bring the menu back." So that's exactly what they did for the newest GT3. People had the option for the automatic, the dual clutch 7-speed, or you could have the 6-speed stick. And then even to just add insult to injury on anybody that might have overpaid for the 911R, they made a touring pack for the GT3, which makes it look like a 911R, just actually a better version. But the funny thing is, I saw the numbers for the split between PDK and manual for the GT3. All that talk, and it was still more PDK cars than stick cars.
Well, now that just thinking about that now makes me think that even though there are many people that, again, want to have the manual transmission, at the end of the day, I feel like there are people who want to drive the car that can afford to actually purchase the car that don't want to go through the hassle of buying stick. So they end up getting the PDK version. Or something happens, something magical at the dealership where they test drive the car and they're like, you know what? I think I like this PDK thing a little bit better than the stick. Because at the end of the day, technology is nice. It's meant to make our lives better. It's meant to make our lives easier. And sometimes, in most cases, more fun. The PDK is probably a very, very nice transmission.
Best on the planet, arguably.
Right. And so, it's kind of like night and day. So it's kind of like that thing you've been driving your whole life or something new. So the reason why, I can't tell you. But I don't know. I still would prefer a manual transmission. So.
Well, yeah, if we were that rich when you could buy a GT3 last year, well, I think it might have even been 2 years ago, I would get stick, but I'm also not mad at anybody who gets PDK.
Because you're going to get, I feel as though you can potentially get more for your money with the PDK. It's going to make it track days a little bit more, how do you say? Not bearable, but it's going to make, track days a little bit more interesting when you can really focus more, not so much on, how you're shifting and, if the car bucks or, anything like that versus a solid, all right, I know the car is going to do its job. I have to do my job, which is actually control it.
Yep.
So it makes, the auto enthusiast who also wants to go faster, get faster lap times, who are not concerned. They want, results. They don't want, the experience. And I think that's kind of where, that's a good segue into like talking about, what is your end goal again, the preference. Like, are you going to use the car for, just driving, for leisure, like back roads where you can really like, enjoy the car for what it is. Don't care if it's PDK, don't care if it's manual, but you just want to like connect with the car. Someone might get manual in that case because they're not worried about, cutting around bare mountains to like turns, doing 90 miles an hour, controlling grip and all that stuff like that. That's out the window. They don't care. But if you're on the track, at the end of the day, you're going to spend your money there because you want results. You want to drop your personal best. You want to hit that new record. And the car that's going to help you do that is the one that can get the job done faster and more efficiently, which in turn is the PDK. You're going to get off the line faster with the PDK. You're going to shift faster up and down with the PDK. And you're not going to have to worry about taking your hands off the wheel on a hard corner with the PDK.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, it's all about what you want from the car.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then to bring it back more to, a lot lower of a price point, like nearly 100 G's, the new Supra is back out. So for all the 90s folks that remember the Supra, it is back again after a long hiatus. So let's see, they were done in 98. It's 2019. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yep. They're retroing cars now, just like Jordans.
Yep.
They got the NSX out. They got the Type R out. Now they got the Supra. I don't know. What's next? The 240? Come on, Nissan. Come back.
Well, they just slacking in general over there.
Yeah, for real.
But, yeah, so, the reviews are out on the Supra. Overall, people seem to like it a lot. But one thing that people keep saying is like, oh, where's the stick? Especially, like, the older crowd. And I'm like, well, it's at that price point where
it should be. It should be offered.
It indeed should be an option, but will that many people buy stick? And are they actually losing on that many sales from people who claim to not want to buy the car because it's not stick. That's what I'm curious about.
I think the stick for this price point might actually make a difference in terms of sales. I mean, let's also bring it back. $60,000 retail is a high price for a Toyota.
Yeah.
We're talking about it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's gonna come down to what is the car, the brand. So like, even though yes, it's a super great car, great potential, it's still a Toyota at the end of the day, and it's still $60,000. That's a lot.
But then it is half BMW.
Yes.
So it's not like you're getting crap.
That's true.
Like if they're gonna partner with anybody, might as well have been them.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with the applications for the engine. BMW's been doing this inline six for years and years and years. They know what they're doing when it comes to manufacturing that. So, I mean, I could definitely see stick being a reason why a lot of people wouldn't purchase the car. I think personally, if you're gonna do something so iconic as the Supra, that you bring it back in proper fashion, which is with the way you offered it in the first time, which was automatic or stick. And, people can make up their mind then. You can do the analytics. You got tens of thousands of workers working for you at Toyota. You could definitely figure out, how many you need to make to be able to appease both sides of the population that would be interested in purchasing a car such as the Supra. I don't think there's any excuse at that point, personally.
The way, all right, so to play devil's advocate,
Mm-hmm.
the way I look at it is like, okay, so the guy that designs the Supra, I don't want to butcher his name, but he's also the same guy that designed my car in the BRZ.
Okay.
He said if people ask for it, then in fact they will do it, as in people who've purchased the car. Right? So I've been looking at a good amount of articles on the car because I want one.
Mm-hmm.
And all the reviews, I'm not really seeing people say that they're missing out on it not being a stick. At least that's not a consistent consensus thing that comes up like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's like, okay, like the tranny is really fast for what it is.
Right.
They're not like, oh, well, this is some garbage. Where's my stick at? And it's like, well, if they like, so to what degree would Toyota really put stock into what the internet is saying when you can't even necessarily say everybody in the internet would buy the car? It's not a cheap car, and how many high schoolers might be the ones making the comments? You know what I mean? Like it could be just like with Porsche, they could do that, and they still sell more automatics.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that's why I say like the analytics would be a big thing. I know it's going to be hard to peg, are you even able to purchase the car? This target audience, we know it's a business at the end of the day. But I just feel like that still doesn't excuse like bringing back a legend and not being able to at least have the option to bring it back to its roots. It's not like you can't make to order these cars either. People will wait if they really want the car the way it is, and they say, hey, I'll wait the 2 months, whatever it might take, to have my car built and send it here with a 6-speed, and I'll take it. And at that price point, I feel as though people would make that sacrifice of waiting to get the car. It's just, I don't know. It's very un-JD. It's not JDM like to me to not have a Supra available in the stick position. That's why you see some people doing the swap already. Like.
Oh yeah, one person.
Yeah.
Well, they also do they did a 6-speed swap on the 430 Scuderia. It's the same place.
But I don't know.
Well, but times move on though. Because there's plenty of other examples within the automotive industry where cars aren't completely like the ones from the past. You can look at the NSX. People all up in arms that the old NSX is this super pure 90s car.
Now it's a hybrid.
And the new one is loaded with technology. But then when you look at the other way, do you not want the envelope to be pushed on technology? And that's the only car that's not a 918 like the next step is a 918 to have that type of hybrid performance in
Yeah.
a car.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, okay, I get what you mean by, you might be looking for that old experience, but if you are, maybe you should just go buy an old one. Or there's other cars that are more similar to the old one than the new one is.
I think that's a very interesting point, and I think you have a really good point, like a really good idea of, a whole conversation that can be had about, you know, technology and are we gonna, do we want to, retrofit and push towards older times, or do we want to advance in terms of vehicles? And obviously, it's never going to stop advancing. They're always going to try to make something more efficient, better is the key. They no car company wants to regress, because once you start doing that, then you're dead in the water because you have to compete at the end of the day. So I think that's definitely a really interesting point.
If you think about it, the same thing can be said about your car. Your car is the first of its iteration to be turbocharged.
Very true. It moves away from BMW's roots very much. They've been naturally aspirated for decades.
Yeah.
And it's, they finally put turbochargers on, these like M cars, and no one really lost their mind that much. Some people did think that it was a sway away from, the roots. But then again, they went from inline six to V8. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about what's going to work best, what's going to, really make something new and innovative. Because you don't want to just keep selling the same exact thing all the time. It's not going to move after some point, I mean, even Porsches, they make their flat six, but they make new things about it. The transmission changes. The engine specs changed a little bit. The interior bits, the technology that you get with the car changes, that type of thing. Now it's like the grippiest thing in the world, and like those are true driver cars. Always have been, and they always push the envelope on how they can make it better and better and better. So
they've been developing the same product since the 60s.
Yeah.
I want to say 60s. Yeah.
Yep. And now they're masters at it, and they still find ways to make it even better. So at the end of the day, things like, should the Supra be manual or dual clutch transmission? It's hard to say now, thinking about that. Very hard to say. I mean, there's always going to be the motoring purists. And there's going to be people that want to try the new thing and aren't afraid to. I guess it's just going to be, where do you fall in that,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not getting one like next year.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take a few years for me to be able to get one. If a stick is out by then, I'll get a stick. But if it's still the same automatic transmission option, that's definitely not going to stop me from getting the car.
And it shouldn't, honestly, because at the end of the day, you're going to want your car to perform at its best. And you also want the car for what it is, not just because of one feature. So, the fact that it's coming, it's a Supra in general. It has the inline six, it has the turbo, that kind of thing. It's iconic, and it's definitely a driver's car for sure.
Yeah. And for everybody else out there, all my car peoples, I don't want you guys to think I'm anti-manual. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. No. We very much love the manuals on almost every car that it's offered on. But there's a certain, not even price point, just a certain point in the type of vehicle you get where, it's kind of just, you got to get the newer thing, I feel like. And
well, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why a lot of these cars, the higher-end cars, aren't stick.
Yeah, it's a case-by-case basis.
It would be a bit too much
Yeah.
for a civilian to deal with.
Yeah, they did it in the past, though. I mean, you got these Lamborghinis.
They didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I know. They got the gated. Well, I mean, at some point they did have a choice for the Lambos. They had gated, or you could have the automatic with the paddle shifters,
which were garbage.
Yeah.
And the sticks are super rare now.
Very rare. But if you had the stick, you were handling lots and lots of horsepower, and
Yeah, but to be fair, a Gallardo or a Murcielago isn't 720S performance.
Oh no.
It's a whole different planet of performance that cars are on now, where you probably wouldn't even be able to enjoy the car if it was actually a stick, because you'd have to be really nice
and focused at all times to even push it to what the car could do.
And most people aren't really that nice.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to y'all, but let's be real. A lot of people aren't as good as they think they are.
100%.
Yeah.
You have to build that up. It doesn't just come from you weaving in and out of traffic, you know?
Yeah, that's
not
doesn't do anything.
Yeah, no, not at all. Just
Yeah.
makes dangerous situations.
Yeah.
But yes, for sure, the point of, developing faster automobiles is to make them as fast as they can possibly go. And at some point, the manual transmission has to go out the door, because it is not the most efficient way to reach higher goals, which is how cars like how cars like the LaFerrari exist, how cars like the Porsche 918 exist, Carrera GT exists. Like these things, like,
well, Carrera GT is
they
stick.
did have stick,
Yeah.
but they also had.
No, it's stick only.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're editing that out. But they have just like all of these cars that wouldn't even be possible without pushing the envelope, getting rid of the quote unquote ancient technology, and moving forward with something that's going to make it all that it can actually be and allow you to access that potential safely too. So.
Yep. Yeah. All right. That's basically all of our topics for today. We talked about the rebrand, talked about Gartrell's car. We did a nice little stick versus automatic conversation for you guys. We're caught up now. We should be back to recording a bit more frequently. Sorry about the basically more than 3/4 of a year delay.
Mm-hmm.
Just dealing with life stuff.
Yeah.
But we're back, and we're gonna have guests on eventually. We gotta work that out with our guests, and that pretty much should be it for today. Make sure to follow us on Instagram. Actually, both of us are on Twitter. The new Instagram for the podcast is Pitbox Pod. So PITBOXPOD. That's the new Instagram where you can go ahead and check out what we're posting. It's basically the end of the season. There's not too many events that are left, but next year once the sun comes back out, you can catch us at all different types of events. We'll be around. I'm usually handing out stickers of the car, and
yeah. Thank you guys for listening. One thing I'd just like to add on top of that, so I've also started a YouTube channel. If you'd like to go check that out, the handle on YouTube is No Lift Garage with spaces. We have a couple videos up right now. We're gonna be releasing a few more. Steve can be seen featured in a few of these upcoming videos. So please check us out, like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll be hoping to bring out some pretty good content for you in the coming future.
Yep. And by the way, if you hear a bunch of background noise, sorry about that. There's a party going on at the studio. Hopefully it's not too bad. But if it is, you're just going to have to deal with it for this one.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And we'll do our best to make sure that next time we are party free.
Yeah. Yep. All right, guys. That should do it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. We appreciate the support and the love from everybody. We're back. We're going to be getting to it. And, talk to you guys soon.
All right. Peace.